ドジャースタジアムの夜空に神話が刻まれます。大谷翔平が見せるのはもはや人間形ではない。何か、50-50という前人未到の領域に達したあの瞬間、我々は歴史の目撃者となりました。球界の頂点に君臨しながらも、なぜ彼はさらに進化を続けるのか。伝説の実況者ジョー・デイビスが語る記録の向こう側にある真実。今日、我々はただの野球を見ているのではありません。後世に語り継ぐべき、偉大なる英雄の列伝をリアルタイムで目撃しているのです。ここからはその様子を字幕付きでご紹介します。
Guy on the Dodgers, you might have heard of him. His name is Ohtani. Okay? And you've seen him do things that other humans don't do. And that's mostly because other humans can't do them. What do you think is the most amazing thing that you have seen him do?
Oh, the one game, the 50-50 game, and I know you're a nerd for that game, Jason, all the historical nuggets that came out of it. Just everything on that day, and that it was not just the 50 home runs, not just the 50 stolen bases, but together, and clinching his first trip to the postseason ever. Just all the things that he layered that day. It was, I mean, you say it's peak Ohtani, but it was only half the deal, right? It was only hitting. I wasn't there during the NLCS last year when he had the 3 home run and 10 strikeout game against the Brewers. I was watching that on TV from Seattle while we were doing the American League Championship Series for Fox, so I didn't see that in person. I guess that's kind of peak Ohtani, where you take the craziness of both sides of it and put it into one game. Yeah, he's just... I was talking to Chris Garagiola, the radio guy for the Diamondbacks, the other day, and he said somebody asked him who he thinks the most underrated player in baseball is, and he said Ohtani. And I thought that was funny and interesting and probably true. It seems stupid. I can't go say that because people think I'm a Dodger homer, so I'm not going to go out there and say that. But he said it, and I was like, you know what? There's probably something to that. I don't know if any of us, I'm sure we have those moments where we were like, wow. But I mean, he's so far onto his own level of anything we've ever seen and anything we ever will. I think it will take time, and I'm not talking a few days or a year. I'm talking having that thick history book written and being able to tell stories to our grandkids and great-grandkids about how different this guy was before we can really appreciate what we're seeing.
Yeah. Is it different even for you when Ohtani heads for home plate? I know I'm always thinking, what am I going to see next?
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking? Because you're not just there to watch it. You have to put it into words and put it into perspective.
Yeah, the first notes of his walk-up song play, and it inspires something a little different in me, for sure. I've run out of superlatives at this point. I do remind myself, like what I just said, I do try to remind myself of that. I don't know if it's like a daily practice, but I try to consistently remind myself how special this is to watch what we're watching. We're watching that thick biography, that Babe Ruth, that, Ted Williams biography being written in real time. And to be able to be in that chair selfishly as the voice of the Dodgers, to be able to watch that every single day, I remind myself a lot how lucky I am.
I mean, well, my adjective is Otanic because you just have to use his name. And that's
it's his own thing.
There's just nothing left. During the playoffs last year, I was joking because all the Hollywood stars were out there, Jason Bateman and Jerry Bruckheimer. So I was just joking about if you wrote a Hollywood script and pitched these guys and you ended with the 50-50 game and said it's based on a true story, nobody would believe you. It's like, this is a baseball movie? I mean, that's how unbelievable it is. Like, how would you even believe this guy would get 50 home runs, steal 50 bases, and I don't know what he do, 6 for 6 or whatever. and every individual category that he performed, most Hall of Famers hadn't performed one of them. So it's just like, and when I feel like when I try to think of like, well, what could he do next? He finds something that I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah.
It's like, it literally is like writing the game. It's let alone the book. He's writing a game. Like, it's like your 3-year-old going that with crayons and like, let me just make a baseball game and just, oh, why can't he ricochet off the moon and land in the stands? Why not?
Yeah.
It's like,
it really is, guys. It really is a gift. I think if we look at it that way, to have how many things inspire wonder in us adults these days? How many things make us stop and say, wow? Like the 3-year-old you're saying, that happens every day to them, but we get older and we've seen everything. And to have a guy who constantly reminds us that it doesn't have to be final, it doesn't have to be impossible, that you can still pause and think what is possible here and dream big. I think that when you channel it that way, it can really be a gift for all of us as we watch him. Bigger perspective than just, wow, how far can this guy hit the ball?
You know what's unreal to me is it's like he wakes up one morning and thinks, hey, nobody's ever been 50-50. I'll do that. Hey, it'd be cool to win the Cy Young. I'll just do that.
Okay? Yeah, and not just to say that, but then every single time to actually go do it.
This can't be done. He's a real human on the planet we live in. And here's my biggest pet peeve. Why do people out there still want him to stop doing both pitching and hitting when he's basically Babe Ruth and Bob Gibson wrapped inside one person?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that those people are the kind of people that are going to find something wrong with anything. And the greater it is, the harder they're going to try to tear it down. Like, that's just, is he going to have to stop eventually? Sure. We all are. But while we got it, yeah. How could you feel anything other than just love for what you're watching him do?
Incredible. What about the for example, ABS has been a real eye opener, and dovetailing that into announcing on the fly, you have these moments now that change your cadence. Even what's that been like to kind of incorporate ABS, and what have you thought of it so far?
Well, until about a week ago, we didn't have the strike zone on our screen anymore, on our monitor in the booth, so that made us look stupid. It was a mandate for Major League Baseball that you couldn't have the zone anywhere in the stadium out of fear that it would lead to somehow cheating and somebody shouting down or whatever, challenge it. It's got to be instantaneous. So they've eased up on that. Finally, we have the box, but it was not great at first. I loved ABS. I didn't love how it was executed in the booth because I'd be like, ooh, when you're sitting there watching on TV, everybody at home sees that it just barely nicked the corner. And when I'm not seeing that, I'm like, oh, it's a good challenge here. This is definitely outside. And everybody's like, no, it's not, idiot. Look, it's right there. So it's been a good shift to get that screen back, to get that strike zone back into our booths.
And Joe, what were some of the insights in how to do that? I mean, you're coming behind Vin Scully. That was a challenge in and of itself. Were there insights about, okay, this is maybe how you can approach it, and then gaining that Dodger history through Vin?
I think what I learned, I learned a million things from Vin, but probably the biggest takeaway was when I would listen, because that first year he did just the home games, I did just the road games. So I got to listen pretty much to 81 games of Vin with a vested interest because I was going to be doing the road games. I would find my ears perking up anytime he would tell a story. And I knew that I needed to make storytelling part of my deal because that's the expectation of the fan base. It's what they had for the entire time the team had been in LA. And as I started to incorporate some more stories into my broadcast, not good, but attempting to tell stories, when I'd go back and critique myself, that's when I'd find my ears perking up again. So I'm thinking, okay, there's something to this. As humans, we are storytelling creatures, and we want to hear stories. The other stuff tends to become white noise a whole lot more than the stories do. So it was appreciating the stories, and that taps into the history. And then it was seeing how once I did that, it even worked for me. Not close to what Vin did, never will be, but I just think the idea of telling stories, and so much of that is pulling in the history of the sport, is, for whatever reason, we're wired to have our ears perk up when that happens.
So well said. Look, we'll circle back to this in a minute, but let's talk about the Dodgers. Another tough year for the Dodgers. They have 15 players on the injured list, including Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow and Edwin Diaz and Will Smith and Teoscar Hernandez, and Mookie Betts is hitting .218 as we're recording this, and Kyle Tucker, $60 million a year free agent, hitting .234. And so naturally, the Dodgers have won more games than any team in baseball. Okay, so
yeah,
what do you make of them? What should we make of them?
I think it's the most well-rounded team that I've seen. There have been teams that were more overwhelming offensively. This team, for one reason or another, the injuries or Mookie and Tucker underperforming, even though the overall numbers say they're the best offensive team in baseball, it hasn't felt that way. It's felt, people are going to roll their eyes, but relatively disappointing offensively. I think when you look at the collection of talent, not the numbers, not the ultimate outcomes of this, but just the way it's felt hasn't quite felt right. That said, their ability to beat you in many different ways is at another level from what I've seen in this run of dominance. The offense, okay, best in baseball statistically, really stinking good, right? Maybe a little below what we thought it could be. That's the offense. Starting pitching, guys like Robleski, until recently Sheehan, Sasaki, kind of coming out of the middle of nowhere to supplement that rotation that has the injuries to Glasnow and Snell. The rotation's been good. So one night you may have Robleski throw 7 scoreless, and that's how you win a 1-0 game. And then the bullpen way better than it was last year. Hadn't been great lately, but overall way better than it was last year. And the piece, guys, that nobody's talking about, or at least not talking about enough, the defense has been extraordinary. Andy Pages way better in center field. Max Muncy's been awesome at third base, best defensive third baseman in the National League. Alex Freeland's been great at second. So you've got Pages' improvements in center. Will Smith much improved behind the plate. Everybody in the infield either as good or better as they were last year. So that's a long answer to say, yeah, they've been dominant for years, but there's something about this team where if one element doesn't beat you, the other probably will.
Yeah, they're trying to become the first National League team ever to three-peat, win the World Series 3 years in a row. And how the Dodgers look at the regular season is so interesting to me. Not just me, though. It's like they have this obligation to play the season so they can try to three-peat.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, I was working on a column about what we've learned so far this year. You were nice enough to actually cite it on the air. And so in the course of it, I was asking people about the Dodgers. One of the executives I asked sent me a text. It said, "Here are my thoughts on the Dodgers." And after that was an emoji of Bill Murray in stripes telling his commanding officer, "I'm pacing myself." Is that a fair depiction of the Dodgers in the regular season?
I think it's a bit of a formality, right? It's like you said it great, where it's like it's what they have to do in order to gain admission into October. It's like their initiation week. You got to go through this to be part of the fraternity, right? Like we know you can't just skip the initiation week. They're not saying that, but I think we all see that is sort of how their level of talent makes it. And it is the way that they operate. They may not say it, they may not think it, but it is the way they operate. And you can say what you will about if that's healthy or not for the sport, but it's proven to win it all. And it's hard to scoff at it when it produces the ultimate goal, which is winning a World Series. Blake Snell has only made one start. Last year, he didn't pitch a whole lot in the regular season, but there he was in October, and that's what people remember. I bet your average fan doesn't remember that Blake Snell didn't pitch during the regular season last year. I bet your average fan doesn't remember that Roki Sasaki wasn't anywhere to be seen during the regular season last year, or that Andy Pages had a good regular season. Nobody remembers that stuff. As long as they get in and are at their peak in October, that's what matters.
So, Joe, I mean, how do they do that, right? I mean, this is still Major League Baseball, right? I mean, there's still the Padres, the Yankees. There's some good teams out there. And I kind of want to also circle Dave Roberts in this, because I remember for years before they got on this run, Dave Roberts would talk about, say, well, Mookie Betts wants a challenge. He's going to go from right to second and then short. Ohtani's, kind of bored. He wants to pitch, like he finds ways to motivate guys that are already, at the top of the field, and recognize that challenge is still really important for their well-being and therefore the teams. But I'm curious how you see they can actually pull this off with all these diverse players in terms of skills and abilities and nationalities even, and how they're actually able to do it.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts on that, Doug. First is your point about Dave Roberts is a good one. He's the winningest manager we've ever seen, winning percentage-wise, and he's had good rosters. But for 11 years, he has pushed the right buttons and managed people as well as anybody I could ever imagine doing it. And you guys know there are a lot of egos in clubhouses, even in humble clubhouses. These guys are all alphas, have been their entire lives. And his ability to manage each one of them and literally make physical contact with each one of these guys every day to let them know whether they're the first guy on the roster or the 26th that he's there for them. So there's definitely something to that. And he deserves probably more credit than he gets. And that's just the nature of the job, right? Nobody's ever going to heap praise onto a manager, kind of like an umpire where you don't talk a ton about him until it goes wrong. So there's the Dave Roberts part of it. I think that it would be, and not that you were saying this, but I think I was probably more leaning in this direction. I don't want it to sound like these guys just talent their way through the regular season and then show up in the postseason and win. One of the more remarkable things to me about these guys is, even though they are the most talented group, these guys work. Like I can only compare it to the earlier iterations of the Dodgers that I've been around every day. It's the only team that I've ever worked with. But comparing it to the 2016 Dodgers, or even the 2019 or 21 Dodgers, the amount of work that these guys put in, the little league fundamental stuff that they do at 2:00 in the afternoon, taking ground balls every day, taking fly balls, working on base running, pitchers fielding practice. I think it's set a trend across baseball too, because we're seeing more and more teams come in and watching their pregame work, and it's like, they're taking infield too. They're taking it. It used to be you'd see a team take infield every few weeks. Doug, I don't know how it was when you're playing, but it wasn't every day like it is right now with the Dodgers and the level of work that they put in right there. And there's plenty more that happens behind the scenes too that we're not privy to. So I know everybody's working hard, but the idea that these guys are at the very peak of the peak and they are still pushing for that final percent, I think that that's important to appreciate and not just think that these are the most talented guys in the world that end up winning the World Series.
So, Joe, there's a...
今のドジャース打線はまさに球界の死の星です。大谷選手が打者成績で最高峰の140プラスを叩き出し、ベッツ選手とフリーマン選手という2人の盟友が相手投手を絶望の淵に追い込むこれほどまでに出来のない打線は MLB の歴史でも類を見ません。特に感銘を受けるのは彼らが数字だけで語られるチームではないという点です。投手陣の防御率や奪三振率といったセーバーメトリクスの数値以上に、彼らの凄みは勝負どころでの揺るぎない集中力にあります。また、ロバーツ監督の選手管理能力は特筆すべきです。あれだけのスーパースター集団を率いながら、各選手のモチベーションを維持し、常に挑戦という新しいスパイスを与え続ける。これは単なる実力主義ではなく、深い人間理解と信頼関係の上に成り立っています。さらに特筆すべきは、彼らが試合前の午後2時から行う地味な基礎練習です。最高の選手たちが、誰よりも泥臭く守備や走塁を磨き続ける。この姿勢こそが強豪がひしめく中で唯一無二の存在感を示し続ける理由でしょう。大谷選手の存在感に隠れがちですが、マックス・マンシー選手の勝敗貢献度、戦前前々も驚異的です。若手全盛の今の球界で、30代半ばにしてなお進化するかのような選手こそ常勝軍団の屋台骨です。皆さんは、この歴史的なドジャース打線の中で、最も勝負強さを感じるのはどの選手ですか？皆さんの熱い視点をぜひコメント欄で教えてください。最後までご覧いただき本当にありがとうございました。歴史の目撃者である今のドジャースについて皆さんはどう感じましたか？ぜひコメント欄で熱い議論を交わしましょう。 この動画が面白いと思った方は、チャンネル登録と高評価をお願いします。また次回の動画で新たな歴史の瞬間をお届けしましょう。